This is designer Lynn Kahari with Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine with another Create Today video. For today's video, we're going to be doing a bit of Copic coloring, as well as using some new products from the Soho Garden collection by American Crafts. I'm going to be using some 6x6 paper pads as well as stamps. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is stamp my images that we're going to be coloring with our Copic markers. I am using Copic Express cardstock. It is specifically made by Copic for Copic coloring. It allows the colors of the markers to blend better on your paper. I'm just starting out by stamping some images. We are going to be using a flower image and a leaf image. We're going to be cutting them out, so I'm just stamping them on some smaller pieces of cardstock. And I usually stamp more than one image just in case while I'm coloring I make a mistake or I don't like the way that the image is looking. I'm going to be starting with the leaf images, and I'm going to go slowly with this image so I can explain what I'm doing here. I'm new to Copic coloring, but I've spent some time reading some information online and watching YouTube videos. The first thing I'm doing is laying down my base color. I'm using a lighter color for my base. Usually when you Copic color, you start with your lighter color and then add in your darker colors for your shadows and your details. So I've laid down my lighter color, and now I'm just coming in here with a darker color, and I'm going around the edges of the leaf as well as the inside. And now I've switched again to my lighter color, and I'm going over it again just to help blend everything. And I've switched again, and now I'm going back to my darker color to add more detail. Copic coloring is really about layering your colors and blending. When you're choosing your Copic colors, it's a good idea to keep them within the same color family, as well as keeping them fairly close together on the Copic color chart. The way that you do that is by picking numbers. Each marker is numbered. By picking numbers that are close together, I think they usually recommend staying within 4 or 5 shades. I'm only using 2 colors on the leaves, so the difference in colors and the detail will be very subtle. And that was really just the look that I'm going for. I'm not going for anything really significant in terms of the shading. I will include the colors that I used on my supplies list, but here's a look at the leaves. And now we're going to move on to the flower image. I'm going to start by using 3 colors of red for the petals on the flower. And I'm going to speed this up just a little bit since obviously it's a much larger image and it's going to take me longer to color. When I colored this image, I did 1 petal at a time. One of the keys to using Copic markers is to try to keep your ink colors fairly wet. That way they blend together a little bit easier. So that's why I decided to do 1 petal at a time. I'm laying down the lightest color on the entire petal, and then I'm going in with my middle color for the details that are closer to the center and where it would be a little bit darker on the petal. When I'm done with this, I'll go back in with my darkest color and add even more detail. And you can see I'm just keeping my markers in my hand as I go along. I found that this is an easy, especially when I'm only using 2 markers and switching back and forth, I found that this is an easy way for me to keep my markers close at hand without having to continuously pick them up off of my cutting mat. So now I've laid down most of my color. I'm going to come back in here and use the darkest color and go back over that center, those darker portions of my image towards the center of the flower. And I'm still using my lightest color to just blend. After I add the dark, I'm using the light color to blend a little bit more. I'm just adding a little bit more detail there. And now I'm going to come in and color the center of my flower. I'm using 2 shades of yellow for this, a lighter and a darker. And I'm just kind of stippling the color in there because there's a lot of stamped detail already there. And once I was finished with this, I decided that I wanted to use a brown marker to color in the very center of the flower as opposed to the yellow that I had previously colored it. And thankfully, because the brown was darker, it covered really easily. So here's a look at the finished flower. We are going to be cutting it out for our card front, and to save a little bit of time, I just went ahead and colored another flower image and leaf image previously and had already cut those out. So now we're going to move to our actual card. For my card base, I'm just using some craft cardstock that I've cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 with the opening on the bottom. And I'm adhering a piece of wood grain paper from the Soho Garden collection from American Crafts that we're using. That will be the base. And now I'm just coming in here with this newsprint. I loved the newsprint look of this with the addition of the flowers. I thought it was really fun. And that's why I chose to use that stamped flower image. I loved the idea of the black and the white newsprint with just this really bright pop of a colored flower on it. We're going to be using these banners and another image from the stamp set. It says thank you. And the light blue that I'm stamping on is actually from the Echo Park 6x6 paper pad that I showed at the beginning of the video. I just wanted something where the stamping would show easily. I haven't used this stamp before, so I'm going to use a little bit of scratch paper here and just stamp it off a few times. Sometimes when stamps are new, they will have a bit of a residue on them that prevents you from getting a nice clear image. So I'm just stamping off a few times to get rid of that residue. And now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to stamp my image using that same black ink that I stamped my flower and my leaf in. And we're going to be layering this on top of the striped patterned paper banner. And I'm just trying to figure out exactly where I want to place it on my card. And then I'll adhere them down. And you can see I'm just going to place the leaf and the flower that we colored basically right over another image of that on that background text paper. I'm going to use dimensional adhesive on the leaf and the flower. I'm using 2 types of adhesive. One, the square adhesive is a little bit thinner than the circle adhesive, so the flower image will pop up a little bit higher than the leaf. Now I've got those all positioned. And I decided I wanted to add a few more details, so I have these mini pearls from Doodlebug Designs. I love adding these pearls, or Doodlebug Designs also have jewels, to my projects for just a little splash of color. And I thought with the red it would really make the flower image pop out a little bit more. So I'm just going to scatter these around on my card front. And I'm taking a look at my card, and I decided that the pearls on the top portion of the card were a little bit too far apart. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to place those a little bit closer to my stamped image. And I'm doing it very carefully so that I don't rip my text patterned paper. And there's my finished card. When I was finished, I decided I wanted to go in with a little bit of glossy accents that I added just to the center portion of the flower. For more information, please visit www.scrapbookandcardtoday.com.